We have yet another episode being done today for the past podcast. If you're tuning in, I do appreciate it. If you'd like to check out any previous episodes, go to Spreaker.com/Brite Podcast. Nonetheless, let's continue the show. What is going on? We have a new month, another week ending. A lot's been on my brain, a lot's been going on in my life, but nonetheless, we're back at it again. This episode will be a little different because it's kind of going to just be me flying solo. Co-worker recovering, but it is what it is. I'm sorry. Co-host recovering, but it is what it is. But I wanted to still stick to the script of doing the episodes. This week was on a personal note, this week was a rough week, and that's about the best way I can describe it. Everything that seemed like it wanted to happen tried to happen this week. So I'm still knowing and realizing that I have a show and a task to do, and that's to give you all as good a content as possible. So for those who are listening for the first time, this is the Past Podcast. This is a podcast. This is a podcast about sports and stuff. I am your host, BT. I've been kind of selective on whether I wanted to maintain or keep the identity or not, but kind of rebranded and changed some stuff. Most of you all who know me know about the Brite Podcast process, so we'll just kind of leave that as it is. But nonetheless, the show must go on. What I want to say before I get started, I have quite a list of topics, so I'll be kind of pushing topics in while I'm podcasting because I have a lot of stuff that I did leave out when I initially prepped everything, because I didn't realize until yesterday actually, that the Gears of War circuit started. So I'm gonna probably be throwing that story into the mix. But this month is April. I will go ahead and start off now. All of the topics, all of the stories that I'll be talking about are actual stories. I'm not making fictitious stories for April 1st, for April Fool's Day. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of in limbo about doing an episode today. I'm gonna be quite frank and honest with you all. Anyone who knows me and knows my show and knows how I do this, I try to be as honest and as blunt as possible with what I'm doing, because I know it's part of the process, it's part of the routine. So I wanted to make sure that I still, give you all, if anything, give you good content, because I don't like to sell anyone anything short on what they deserve, because I know if I'm looking for something good, I'm expecting good out of it, and this podcast, of course, to me is no exception. Sorry, you'll hear random clicking because for whatever reason, it was something I was trying to do before starting the episode, so that was going on. Like I said, it's quite a list of topics that I do have in queue today, so I'm not going to really bore y'all half to death with the early bit spiel, but I do want to say before I continue, I do have one other thing that I want to say before we get started, or before I get started. I will be doing an episode every day in the month of April. So far, and I have to do it this way solely for myself and also for the benefit of the podcast process. Some episodes will be preloaded and pre-prepped, I guess, if that's a good way to say it. So if they happen, just kind of let it be what it is. But I am going to make sure, or make it my goal, to do an episode every day in the month of April. Side note, and I always do this because I always talk about her in my podcast. Ashley, if you are listening, I kind of, for some reason, don't ask me why, I thought April was what started your podcast and maybe doing like podcasting every day. But then you just started as a passion, and it was a few days before April, so it was a kind of a coincidence. Once I started to count the days and it got closer to the end of your float, and it kind of was going the way it was. And I always mention her each week in the episodes because she was a big part of me working on the brand and working on the process. Still got a little bit of a delay with getting the website, but we're gonna we're gonna make that work as best we can. So I do have my artist spotlight for the week, and if you haven't prepped it yet, but as y'all know, I'll have it prepped once you get to see the episode, and once you get to hear the episode, and once I have it all live and everything of that sort. I'll have the image of everything that'll be talked about in today's episode. So the first part, as always, is we do our artist focus. A couple of weeks ago, I did do a episode on Al Jarreau and talking about, getting your boogie down and different songs that he did. Well, one of his, I guess you could say, sidekicks or a close connection he had when it came to music is the artist that we're doing today, and that is George Benson. For whatever reason, I always love, because the page that I go to likes to give me a hard time with showing the information. But George Benson was he was a professional singer, and George Benson started out as a singer. He performed in different nightclubs at the ripe young age of 8. So I don't know why this wants to happen to me today. It's like everything that can go wrong tries to go wrong. You gotta love it. He was recording for a undercover group under RCA's X label back in 1954. One of his big singles that most people know him for is called Rhythm of the Night. I always like to talk about that song because Randy Crawford did a similar version of Rhythm of the Night. Oh, I'm sorry. Not Rhythm of the Night. Give Me the Night. Let's see. I'm going to give you a few of his hit singles, and then we'll kind of blend into it a little bit. He did Affirmation. Breezin' is one that a lot of people know. That was one that he did. California Dreamin', like I said, Give Me the Night. Kisses in the Moonlight. Love Ballad was another one that was well known. He was, like I said, he was pretty versatile when it came to his music, his musical intake, and he made that clear when it came to how his production and his performances were. He was he was well known mostly predominantly as being a guitarist, so that was kind of like his, groundbreaking thing back in the day. So, I chose him as an artist solely because I'm a big, I always do artists based on my personal history, and I did a lot of listening to I got into, when I got out of high school, I listened to jazz music coming up. I did classical stuff like that, but I definitely listened to jazz, and without exception, his music was one that I kind of grew to love, and it just kind of went the way it did. So that's kind of the main basis of why I chose him as an artist this week. I'm gonna kind of have to go to my plan B, because I know how sometimes things happen and it doesn't work out your way as expected. He was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Played the ukulele starting out. As I mentioned earlier, he did play guitar at 8. He recorded his first single called She Makes Me Mad. A couple of his big albums he got Grammy Awards for Best R&B Instrumental Performance for the theme from Good King Bad. Also, Best Pop Instrumental Performance for Breezin'. Best Male R&B for Give Me the Night. And he earned those awards among others from 1977 to 1981. 2007, he got 2 Grammys for Best Traditional R&B Performance for God Bless the Child, as well as he earned Best Pop Instrumental Performance for Morning. So he has been married to, wow, that's a long time for a marriage. He's been married to Johnny Lee since 1965. His music, he focuses more towards love and romance, and as a random fact, he's a Jehovah's Witness, which I didn't even know. Shows how much I'm kind of doing my research here and there. Nat King Cole was a big part of his inspiration, because he did do a dedication track to him for the song. He named it An Unforgettable Tribute to Nat King Cole. when he was doing it. He's traveled to multiple countries to perform. One of them being Turkey. Yeah, so that's kind of like his overall musical background. Like I said, he started from 1964 and has been performing since. He's been under multiple record labels: Prestige Records, Columbia Records, Verve Records, A&M Records, CTI Records, Warner Brother Records, GRP Records, and Concord Records. So yeah, that was my dedication I wanted to do with him before, as far as the musical fixing that I've kind of known to love. So I'm kind of gonna throw a little. This is gonna be kind of like a ramble, but it's a conversation that I've had because most of you all know that I'm a gamer and I talk about gaming a lot, and I bore people half to death when I talk about it. But side note, outside of podcasting, I do streaming, or I've been looking to do streaming. I have a PC and I have the Elgato capture card HD 60 to do my streaming, which I kind of streamed a little bit last year, but not as consistent. But the Elgato company has brought out a new device called the Elgato Stream Deck. There's a link to the site or the article. I'm gonna detail mainly what it does, because currently there are different streamers who are using the beta, and basically what you do is you have 15 buttons. It's basically a device you sit with you. It sits beside you. It's plugged into your computer, and you can program your buttons to control 210 actions, and you just kind of make them and generate them into different keyboard shortcuts. You have the option to add different images, to add different videos, to add animations, and you can add audio clips. I posted and talked about this, and I found it funny because when I first saw this article and I looked at it, I was like, all right, let me see what this is about. Before the link that I found online that I'm sharing with you all in the notes. The initial breakdown of it is they show you different interfaces on the Elgato Stream Deck, and what they did was they would use it. They had a button that just kind of said go live or start stream. So as soon as you hit that button, you're starting your stream. Then they had a button to confirm when you were, to kind of send out social media links to let everybody know, hey, I'm going live. Here's, come check me out. So it kind of helps you. I'm not going to say it makes you lazier as a streamer. It helps you with doing things that streamers can sometimes forget to do. So they would change the buttons out. They showed another option with different buttons that it had. And then the last part of it, which I was enjoyed by, and I think why I really pushed to do this podcast or do this story the most, was because what they basically did was they took someone was playing soccer and they missed a shot, and I think they showed someone like holding it was a pizza reference. So then they went back and showed another play where a person was going for a goal kick or a penalty kick. I'm sorry, soccer. I've been watching soccer today, so I'm a little devastated, but we'll talk about that later. Where they took a penalty kick and scored. So when they scored the penalty kick, they had a sound effect that made the air horn sound, which any of my friends or any of my folks who know me knows how I am about the air horn. So when that was on there, that one feature was the one thing that sold me on wanting to get the Elgato Stream Deck. It does sell currently for $149.95. You can pre-order it on Amazon. It will be released in May. They have it on their website currently to link you to different sites such as Amazon and fave.co. Looks like it's under its website for game. Those links also are listed in the description. And like I said, if you want to get kind of a brief overview of what the Elgato Stream Deck does, they do have a trailer on YouTube, as well as they have it's a video that goes to the YouTube video on the link that I have shared in the notes for today's podcast. So moving away from that, last week, and this is one of those, I guess this was E-League, well, not E-League, this was esports weekend. So I'm leaving the story out, but I'm going to implement it in my own way because it's just me being me, because y'all know I got a method to my madness. And of course, since I have no co-host, I kind of can shoot from the hip a little bit, and I know he'll understand because it's just how I am with certain things of this sort. So the in the Halo world, they had Optic Gaming was able to pull off the unthinkable by winning the 2007 Halo World Championships. I want to make sure I get the location. Now they did win $500,000 for first place in winning that trophy or winning that award. Let's see. Halo is one of those games that I always like talking about. I always love getting into. They were able to, and I'm pulling this from ESPN, which is kind of not my norm, but it was kind of there, so I just kind of went for it. But I just wanted to throw that story in because I usually talk about certain games because it's like, oh, this is my favorite game, but this is what I like. But I wanted to kind of give Halo its love and also give Optic Gaming its love because Optic did win that matchup. And since I have the story pulled up and it's kind of going to be implemented in Mad Catz, I'm looking at this article as I'm talking to y'all because I didn't have this as a show note, but I wanted to add this in because I always like to make sure I get all my gaming and music and things put into the air early on. But Mad Catz has filed for bankruptcy. So a lot of people are probably like, who is Mad Catz? Typically, most folks know them as an off-brand controller company. If you go to somebody's house and your player one always gets the nice everyday controller that you bought with the system, and then if you bought that cheap, inexpensive controller, one of the brands that was out that made those type of controllers was Mad Catz. So Mad Catz is filing for bankruptcy, which may not sound like a lot, but it's actually a big deal. And the reason why is because now in the gaming community, they're actually known for being a part of. They use when it comes to games such as Street Fighter V, among other games, they have the best well-known joysticks on the market for that gaming industry. There are other companies who have been selling those type of products. You have Arcade Shocks among others. Arcade Shocks name one of them. But looks like it's a financially based process as to them making that decision. In 2006, so Mad Catz was founded in '89, and in 2016, it had announced that they laid off 37% of their staff and allowed the sponsorship of a couple of their big names to expire. Fighting game legend Daigo's sponsorship ended shortly after, and Mad Catz formed a special committee in 2016 to take a closer look at alternatives to the company's financial outlet. So in hindsight, they were trying to do what they could, but they ended up not really having many options to make what they had work. So they had to make, as we would all call it, a business decision, and that was their end result with that. So also last week was 2GGC hosted an event called Civil War, and that was from the 24th to the 26th. That was in Santa Ana, California. That consisted. Now, the main basis of the event was to have Zero and MK Leo, if I'm not mistaken. They had a tournament against each other. I'm sorry, let me go back. This is when you learn how to read before you throw stuff out there. Team Zero and Team Ally was made, and they did a crew battle. So basically it worked as you would have your first participant fight. Whoever won that match, they would stay on the sticks. The other team that person would have lost and they're out, and then the next person would come up and you kind of had to run it as a crew battle. It was a unique scenario because Zero actually got knocked off earlier than expected in the Smash tournament, so that was a shocking blow. The finalists for the top three in the Smash Bros. Wii U tournament was DeBuzz with he won 10,300. His main was Rosalina. Fatality came in second. His main was Captain Falco, and third was T using Legend of Zelda. And like I stated earlier, the big shocker was Zero coming in 49th place because he kind of didn't bring his best game when it mattered most. They did Wii U doubles, they did Wii U singles. I'm wanting to say they did Melee, but I don't feel like they did. Usually Melee, they kind of pick and choose when to throw Melee tournaments in the mix. But since I'm talking about Smash tournaments, we are I got an email about it, and I'll go ahead and share with you all that Super Smash Con is coming in August. They've opened registration for it so far, so that'll be ready soon. And the reason I give that its attention is because it's here in Virginia. I want to say this is their third or fourth year doing Smash Con. I like Smash Con because it's very interactive. They do a lot of merchandise selling. All of your big Smash tournaments, all your big Smash games will be there. They do Melee, Smash Bros. Singles, Smash Doubles. I think from what I can understand, if I'm not mistaken, Project M is not really played there. Maybe the only reason they probably would do it at that tournament is because that's a tournament that isn't as broad in the in the Smash gaming community. So that's that story. So I didn't have a tab or I didn't have a story initially shared for this, but I will go ahead and share the story because it's a big story to me, strictly because I am a pretty big fan of the event as a whole. Starting on last Monday, they did Street Fighter 4. For those of you, if I want to say a couple of episodes back, I did talk about this. Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5. I'll learn my Roman numerals one day. Street Fighter 5 participated is now part of the E-League. So E-League is only involving Counter-Strike and Street Fighter. So they mainly had the biggest names in Street Fighter all compete in different pools. And they pretty much broke down ranks, and whoever had the lowest ranks, they were sent home, or the two lowest ranks. So in Group A, Marn and Ricky Ortiz with Evil Geniuses both were knocked off. Smug had a pretty good run. He was ranked third. Anbu Punk was first. He was 6-1. So that was that run. Infiltration was 4-3. Group B was a pretty heavy group. Guilty and Alex Valle both were knocked off and sent home. Justin Wong had a strong run towards the end. He ended up being ranked 5. He went 3-4. PR Balrog was first, and Snake Eyes is gonna be the one that I think people need to keep their eye on. Snake Eyes was second at 5-2, and Balrog was first. PR Balrog was 6-1. Now he uses as assumed or as obvious. Balrog is his main character, so that's why he has that name. Going into Group C. Group C was the one that everybody wanted to really see what would happen. The oddest ones who were knocked up, the oddest that was knocked off was K-Brad because he was 1-6. Gutex was 0-7. He was 8th. Wolf Crone and K-Brad were in the same group, and they don't like each other, and they made it clear from the beginning. Xian, he won one of the most recent tournaments. I can't remember which one because I've talked about it on the podcast as well. He went 5-2 and he was third. F-Champ was fourth in that group. MOV was 5 and Tokido was 6 and number 2 was Fudo. And finally in Group D, Knuckle Dew had the top spot, 6-1. Phenom was second. Luffy third. Zhao Hai fourth. Chris Tatarian 5th, Ryan Hart 6th closing out, and 7 and 8. LPN and L.I. Joe were both sent home. So as I'm looking at this and as I break it down, now that they've gotten those portions out of the way, it's going to be broken down in brackets, where now they're going to be doing group matches. So between each group, We've done prelims, which we've all seen and watched kind of play out as they did, based on each group. The number one so now, all right. So this is good for me to elaborate, and I'll make sure I put a link for this in the show notes as well. 1 and 2 automatically goes to regular season group semis, whereas 3 through 6 they all are fighting for regular season quarterfinals. So that's why you want to at least solidify a 3 through 6 seed. So on April 7th, Group A will be played. April 21st, Group B will be played. May 5th, Group C will be played, and May 12th, Group D will be played. So as I've mentioned, everyone, like I said, I'll have the full breakdown of everyone who's playing and who will be going against whom, and how that all is going to be set up. But I feel like this is going to be a pretty good round of events and matches to watch and catch up on. So that's my gaming and esports moment. I apologize. I did kind of give y'all little to no information about some of the other events, but I do want to add this as a side note and kind of address this because it's relevant. Gears of War is going on right now. They are playing their invitational or their tournament with UG. It's linked with UGC. That's being held in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And those matches are on TV now. Splice, a lot of teams are trying to participate in pools to get to main stage to possibly win the $200,000 prize, if I remember correctly. So I have links for some of these stories. Some of them are going to use links, some of them I'm not, because some of these stories kind of are, well, okay, let me rewind. Before I do sports, I want to kind of do a reflect and a recap of not 2017. I'm going to do a recap for the whole year in 3 months. I'm going to kind of talk about March and address a couple of things with myself, and this is kind of going to be where I guess the podcast isn't supposed to be personal, but I'm going to make it personal from my perspective. March wasn't the worst year, but it wasn't the greatest year. Things kind of happened, life went in chaotic directions. But the important reminder and the thing that I always have to come back to and remembering is that I'm still standing. So without standing, I wouldn't be halfway where I'm at or working towards what I'm trying to work on. So that's the nicest way I can say it, or the best way I can address it. I've not been the greatest. I've not had the greatest of moods towards anyone, and if I've carried it towards anyone, I will apologize now. But life happens that way sometimes, so it is what it is. So what we're doing now is for sports. I got a bit of a unique story that I'm going to talk about first. We have our good old friend Colin Kaepernick in the news once again, talking about his he's been critiqued for his problems with trying to get a spot with San Fran. It looks as though he's, in so many words, the story that's been the trend is whether he's being blacklisted in the NFL. And having my co-host is when this gets into a fun conversation, because everyone has said it, everyone has acknowledged it, everyone's addressed the obvious. He's not been seen as the greatest player to be on a team. No one's seen the good things that he's done to help the community. No one's seen the ways that he's taken money and funds that he's earned from jersey sales and placed it towards helping out those who are in need. It's mainly been, well, he refused to stand for the national anthem during the preseason game, and he refused to stand for any games that he started or played in. And no one wants to take on Colin Kaepernick because of the media attention that he will bring if you pick him up. It was a funny story, and it was a funny situation. Well, I'm not even going to say a story. It was a funny situation seeing it, where someone posted on Facebook, and I've any of my friends who do or don't understand this already, and this is part of what I was talking about earlier. Facebook for me is not as frequently used, which means I see posts, but I don't respond or comment on everything because I don't have the app in my phone anymore because I'm just not into that time base of using it. So now I mostly handle what I need to in the bare minimum form, which is I'll listen to stories and listen to information as it's addressed, but I don't really sit and invest energy in Facebook. But today I went on just to be a little random because I did tell people I was going to participate in the 10K. I did pretty good. I had a good race. Yeah, no goodness well I participate. So that was my petty, modest April Fool's joke. But going away from that as we hit the 30-minute mark, one of my friends posted about Colin Kaepernick being traded to the Jets or being picked up by the Jets, and one of his friends who I'm friends with is a 49ers fan and gave the most angry, smug face like, yeah, that was funny, good try, April Fools, whatever. But the truth of the matter is every team is scared to deal with Colin Kaepernick. And what's sad about it is maybe it's just me, I don't see where he's a big conflict. The only thing, and I've stated this on numerous occasions, if you're not getting a healthy Colin Kaepernick, then you may or may not be sure if he's the guy that you want to go for. So that's probably why a lot of teams aren't picking him, but they're also looking at it as he's being blacklisted due to his off-field antics or his impact that he's having because he's making the media have to discuss something that they don't want to discuss, or he's having to make the world talk about something that they don't want to discuss. Roger Goodell can't even back him on this because he's not even touched it, if you notice, so pay attention to what's been going on with that story. But I'm giving this the attention it is because I've been adamant in saying I don't like doing a lot of politics on my podcast. This would probably be my exception in the story going on with him, as well as the story I have going on for Ass of the Week, because that just it was a weird Ass of the Week, but it worked for what it was done for, so I put it in just to kind of go along with the flow. So that's my story I have with Kaepernick and his possibility of getting picked up by a team. Will somebody pick him up? I highly doubt it. I really don't see anybody picking him up this year. I think if they let his media attention die down this season and then come back and get him next year, that could be possible. But that's a matter of if anybody even wants to take on that risk. So we're going to run into our favorite point of the season, which actually, if I'm not mistaken, I need to double check because I believe the games will be on in a couple of hours, actually. In a few hours, South Carolina plays Gonzaga and Oregon plays North Carolina. So before I talk about that, I'm going to point out that a few more kids have decided to declare for the NBA draft. TJ Leaf is going pro. He has decided, he went ahead and got an agent. He's going to go pro. The center for Arizona, I can't think of his name, he's going pro. And LeVar Batts, who was committed to VCU, he decommitted from VCU and now is going to North Carolina State. Probably going to do the same option as Dennis Smith. I hope he doesn't, because he's not. He has. I think the key for a lot of, and I'm going to say this because it's worth mentioning. What makes or breaks a lot of players in sports is whether you're able to remain polished in your game, and not everyone has that ability to be a polished basketball player. Because I've seen raw basketball players that still do pretty good, but you have to have some type of an organization to your game. So when we look at the Final Four, you have 4 teams that are in unique situations. You have Gonzaga that's never been to the Final Four. You have South Carolina, who hasn't been in a long time. Oh, I'm sorry, let me make sure I got this right. Gonzaga and South Carolina are kind of the new kids. Oregon hasn't been since the first year of March Madness or of the Final Four. And North Carolina has been on numerous occasions. So, yeah, Gonzaga and South Carolina are the new kids. But it's it's a unique. I mean, I'm redundant in the unique terminology with this game, strictly because the obvious pick to go. So the chalk pick for most people would be North Carolina. The wild card to pick would be Gonzaga, and I'm only saying Gonzaga is the wild card strictly because you really don't know who you're going to get from Gonzaga. And speaking of which, their coach did win Coach of the Year. Frank Mason, local high school player from Petersburg, he was named Player of the Year by the Associated Press. So shout outs to those two individuals. And yeah, it's gonna be some. I feel like tonight's game is gonna tell a lot. Watching Oregon go against North Carolina is gonna be tough because most of the like we don't see, as far as East Coast fans, we don't see Oregon enough. We don't see Gonzaga enough. Gonzaga has always been the Cinderella team. So now Gonzaga is known for being a good team. It was a tough struggle or a tough battle for them to earn their number one seed, to even be in the conversation to be an overall one seed, because they took one loss, and that one loss pretty much said, all right, thanks, we'll still give you a one seed, but you got to win out your tournament, and you got to do everything possible to prove to the selection committee that you belong as a one seed, which they did, and that was that. So yesterday, and I'm kind of jumping around with this because I don't have it listed, but it's going to be shared anyway. The South Carolina girls were able to beat Stanford, and the shocker of college basketball, despite all of the matches and tournaments that have been going on, UConn streak was snapped, and it was snapped by Mississippi State. I will be sure, because I'm going to make sure that I go back. Now that I'm getting a better flow with the podcast, I'm going to definitely be listening in, and I'm going to make sure I give you that link for that story, because that was a huge blow to their team. Gino Auriemma was not very pleased with the end result. He made it clear when he did his post-game interview. I always say this, and I'm going to say it until it actually happens, which is probably never going to happen, but I would always dream of being the guy who does the post-game interview for the losing team in a sporting event. So when Carolina lost, even though I'm a Carolina fan, I would have loved to be talking to Ron Rivera during that process and talking about, how it felt, what went through y'all head, stuff like that. So that's that story. We have a couple more stories, a little bit of basketball, some football, kind of spun some football in the opposite direction, and then we'll go into the ass of the week. So for some reason, and I'm going to say this because I am being very honest in what I'm about to tell everyone. Black coaches in sports I don't think are meant to go in the same sentences. And Georgetown could possibly go against the grain in proving this. Couple of years ago, and I'm still thinking as far as right now, he's still an assistant coach, or may not even be coaching with anybody. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is not seen as someone who's going to get a coaching position. Let's throw out the fact that he's won multiple championships. Let's throw out the fact that he's the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. Let's throw out the fact that he still participates in events with the NBA, despite what the NBA feels towards him as far as his views and his beliefs. Patrick Ewing is going for the job for Georgetown. So to give a little bit of history, John Thompson III was previously the coach. Didn't have the best season. They decided to give it up and let him go. And it was time to look for a new coach. So John Thompson III's father, the John Thompson, who had not been coaching there for numerous years, had some of the most dominant centers. his era in coaching introduced centers and made centers established. And this is no knock against Shaq. So, Shaq, if you're listening to the podcast, I say this every time. If you're hearing this, no, this is not a stab towards you. Because, I would never want to play you in basketball, ever. I don't care. Even with you now with bad knees, no, I'm good. I'll stay right out there. I'll literally shoot from half court just to keep away from running and me trying to score on you in the paint. Because, nah. But Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning, and Patrick Ewing all played for John Thompson. Now, they all played in different times. They didn't play with each other per se, but they all played under him. And currently, Ewing is an assistant. Ewing's been an assistant coach in the NBA for quite some time. It's time. If Georgetown does not make this decision to pull the trigger on bringing him in, then something's wrong. It's a reason they don't want to do it, and that's just their personal perspective. So going back to what I said, and I did mention it, so this will blend into the college story. LeVar Betts, the reason he's decommitting from VCU is because of the coach change. When Will Wade left and Anthony Grant came in, I'm guessing he just was not. Well, not Anthony Grant. With Will Wade leaving and Mike Rhodes coming in, that's what made him decide to go to NC State. And I'm guessing as of right now, NC State still has their coach, so hopefully he doesn't decommit from there as well. But Ewing's credentials should be able to state that he has. I mean, he's been an assistant coach for 15 years, and no team has fired him. He's just gone to different teams and been assistant coach. He's probably been, a coach as far as showing different plays and different ways of how to become a better big man, things of that sort. And what's odd about it is last year's champion, the Cleveland Cavaliers head coach, was on the Lakers, and that's all we know him for being stepped over by Iverson. I mean, granted, he has a championship now as a coach. Actually, 2 since he was actually playing. So it's the balance of the imbalance when it comes to how players or players who have retired and have since looked to pursue and expand their career, how their treatment is when it comes to the NBA or when it comes to sports as a whole. So that's why I made the initial comment about black coaches and how much of a battle that can be at times. So moving away from that, well, kind of sticking to basketball in a sense, we are a couple of days away from the end of the NBA season, which for this story doesn't mean much because the important part of it is going to be when the important part of it was when the actual when they make the choice and the option for NFL. I'm all over the place. I apologize, y'all. We're a couple of games away from the end of the regular season, which will then lead us into the conversation for the MVP discussion. The MVP discussion started right after All-Star break. Most people had a shoe-in for Russell Westbrook. A lot of people still feel it's James Harden. Westbrook's team currently is 6, and it's kind of a coincidence right now because Westbrook's team is 6. Harden's team is 3rd. So if the playoffs were to start, they would play each other in the first round, which I think would be a pretty good game. The names that you are hearing right now when it comes to the race for the MVP, of course, Westbrook's number 1, Harden's number 2, Kawhi Leonard is in 3rd, LeBron's 4th, Isaiah Thomas is number 5, Steph is 6, Wall is 7, Gordon Hayward quietly at 8, DeMar DeRozan at number 9, and Damian Lillard is number 10. Now, they did a very unique story with Damian Lillard asking him who should be the MVP. and he was honest in saying, I feel like they should do a co-MVP. Co-MVPs, no, I wouldn't even approve it. I feel like that's not going about it the right way. I feel like it should be one and that's it. But if you were put in a position of having to choose someone right out of the box, I personally would say my choice would be. And last week on an episode or a couple of weeks ago, I did say James Harden. Right now, for Westbrook to be the leading scorer in the NBA and still average a triple-double, that's hard. That's not an easy task to pull off. I mean, he's been getting triple-doubles left and right. He's broken the record for most triple-doubles during the regular season. Recently, not too far back, Harden picked up his 20th triple-double, and he's currently in the 2,000 category of getting 2,000 points and 2,000 assists in one season, which, I mean, you got to give props to that. Like, to be the first person to ever do that, it's pretty big. I'm doing the MVP story for a reason, and it's involving Harden, because he almost would have had to eat his own words. The conversation came up in stating that it should be, if a player wants to be MVP, or if a player should be in consideration for MVP, they should have played the entire season. Problem with that is, or they should play all 82 games. Problem is, and he's doing that based on if you rested. Now, if you had an injuries depends on the amount of games you're out. Before Durant was hurt, Durant was in the MVP conversation. I personally would have stated Durant easily, but then it's a unique scenario now because since Durant has been injured, Golden State looks like a better team. And it's been showing in the way they play. They kind of just gone back to their original style of playing, and let's just win these, let's get these regular season games and let's solidify a 1 seed, because they almost were out of the 1 seed, and it was kind of like a shuffling match between Golden State, San Antonio, and Houston. Now it's mainly Golden State's destiny to kind of control where things go or what the end result becomes with that. So if I was to put my money on it right now, I would say Westbrook. Can it change? It usually does, and most times how it changes, and I always remind people about this because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If you have Kobe Bryant having a good season, but they don't fulfill the process of winning the first, getting out of the first round, or something happens where they have a rough series against that team, they don't usually get the MVP. Is held after the first round of the playoffs. Something tells me if Oklahoma City loses to if Oklahoma City plays Houston and Houston wins that series, James Harden's going to get the MVP. And that's taking nothing away from Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard has stats to be an MVP, but Kawhi Leonard has not been as in the limelight, I guess, to get MVP. Like, he's a player who's like, I don't want it to be known what I did. I just did it because I'm out here to do my job. And that's how he plays. I mean, it's not him playing with no personality. It's just he plays with the focus of, I'm here to get what I need to get accomplished, and that's to win this game and to get off the court and to get to the playoffs. Because, I mean, a couple of years ago, he was the most soft-spoken MVP I've ever seen. And, I mean, it was even worse because they were playing against Cleveland. Shows how much I was out of touch with life at that time. They were playing against Miami, which turned out to be a pretty decent series for the most part. So, jumping back towards football, 31-1 have stated that the Raiders will be moving in 2019, if I'm getting this correct, in 2019, they will be moving to Las Vegas. And everyone is in arms about this. And I apologize. In 2020, I'm going to go ahead and give you the numbers for this, because this is why I love stories like this, because this is an interesting scenario, especially with the Raiders not having the greatest of seasons, and then all of a sudden they have a good season. And the season they have a good season, moves are made and transactions going behind the scenes to move the team away from a town that actually loves having them. In 2020, they are expected to move into a $2 billion stadium with $750 million in public financing, an agreement that helped to attract the league's interest. The rest of the money was expected to come from a $600 million loan from Bank of America to the team, $200 million from the league, and revenue from naming rights and other deals. All right. So I guess this will be my sports talk, but this will be my numbers talk, where I'm kind of giving y'all a little bit of tips and advice on some stuff. Some teams outright buy stadiums, pay them off, however you want to look at it, breaking down numbers. Discussion was made, and maybe I want someone who's a Dallas fan to break this down for me. Did Jerry buy the stadium outright, or did Jerry put a loan in on a portion of it and then allow the rest of it to kind of be what it was towards taking care of the stadium? Because when they first got the venue, they were trying to get every sporting event that they could get in that stadium. They were doing basketball games, they were doing boxing matches, whatever it took to get money. Las Vegas is going to have to do the same thing. Now, I'm probably going to be real random for saying this, and this is in 2020, so it probably won't be as revenue-based by that time. It'll be revenue-based, but I don't think it's going to bring the revenue that they're expecting. Even though they had a Metropolis Esports or E-League arena in Las Vegas, I feel like this new venue that they build will be good to bring in revenue for that in that regard as well. A lot of people aren't big fans of the move. It's kind of an interesting scenario because this is all happening since Al Davis passed, because they kind of already know, and it's kind of an evident idea that this is not what Al would have wanted. If it was Al's option or his choice, the Raiders would be back in LA. Like, no problem. They show images of the excitement of the Raiders coming to Las Vegas. It's going to be a unique situation with traffic. It's a lot of things that's going to go into this move. And what makes it so interesting, they had a meeting in Phoenix making this decision, and it was 31-1, with Miami being the only team who did not want to have it. Teams have been trying to stay away from Las Vegas. The NBA tried it once. They wanted to bring a team in. They were looking to move the Hornets there, but they ended up going to New Orleans, or going with New Orleans. Last year, it was confirmed that a team will be created in Las Vegas known as the Golden Knights. They're going to be playing later on this season. Or they're going to play at the beginning of this upcoming season, because they're going to play this year. The story is heavy for me, and I talk about this because they're kind of almost like the last team that they wanted to figure out what they want to do with, because most of your teams in the NFL all have new stadiums or have revamped their stadiums. The only one that they got to delay on is due to contractual reasons. That word will be on Words of Friends today. Somebody's going to get it. They don't even know it. They are one of the last teams that has still some finalizing with their contract for the Bills to manage the current stadium they have. So that's why they haven't gotten a new stadium yet. And oddly enough, Trump was supposed to be part owner of that team, and I think that deal fell through before it even had a chance. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this Raiders move goes. I just know I wanted to talk about this one because it was a coincidence with the LA Rams going to LA, or with St. Louis having the Rams move to LA this year, and then turning around and having, looking to get Oakland moved. Initially, they were going to go to LA, but then they ended up going to Las Vegas, or they'll be going to Las Vegas. So there's that breakdown. And our final story, which is going to be my fave ass of the week this week, involves our current president. A lot of people are not fond of him, and I'm not here to do political riffraff because that's not how my podcast works. But I'm sorry, I'm adding some information for some of the stories that I've already talked about. But I want to make sure I don't leave anything behind because it's not fair to you all. Sorry. All right. Got everything remembered so I can get all that prepared. All right. So this week's Ass of the Week goes to our current president, Donald Trump. He decided to decline the invitation for spring training. For opening day. All right, take two. He declined the invitation with the Nationals to throw out the ceremonial first pitch before the opening game with the Miami Marlins, which is going to be this coming Monday. So as part of tradition, since 1910, the American president throws out the first pitch at the stadium against the opponent. Trump's reason is that he can't do it due to scheduling conflict. Trump has met some resistance within baseball following his inauguration, and he's been very adamant about not participating in anything because if it ain't about what he's doing, it doesn't matter to him. And they have a story that states, ultimately, that decision is with the ownership group as to what major politicians and political figures and society figures they want to invite. I know that the administration has taken a lot of criticism for its controversial positions. I think more so perhaps for statements made both during the campaign and since the administration came in concerning things that are considered to be problematic from a race, ethnicity, religious, gender, disability standpoint. People in those communities have been spoken about very negatively by a candidate and now president. This mainly sums up and states the fact that having him choose to do something of this sort with all that's going on, it would have kind of eased the tension, but him deciding not to participate just made it more clear that he just is better off to stand backed off. And this is from Dan Steinberg, who has a podcast that I'm going to check out because I feel like I may enjoy it myself, called Be More Opinionated podcast. But with the White House as well as the Nationals, they're not discussing or addressing this conversation or this storyline. And Trump it's, I'm trying to think if Bush did this or not, because I don't remember. I don't know if Bush did George W., if he did the brackets or not. But I know Obama did the brackets. But Trump decided not to fill out a March Madness bracket. And he wasn't going to do that anyway because I couldn't see him being into basketball. I think if he was to go to a basketball game, it would be for PR purposes to say, hey, I was there. But this story, I give him Ass of the Week for this strictly because it's a tradition or a trend that's done and you decided not to do it for your own personal reasons. It wasn't like you had to do it. You just chose not to because of your personal preference. Apologies if that didn't come through clear, but I was readjusting my life. So I'm glad that you all have stayed for all 59 minutes of this podcast. I did something a little different. I'm using my using the actual screen that I have in my in the room that I use. There may be some changes coming soon. I gotta just get some money together and make it happen. Maybe podcasting from a different venue. Have to see how things go with that. But I do appreciate everyone taking time to listen and tune in and check out the show, because every listen helps. It gives me a lot. It gives me a better overview of what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. Continue to listen. As I stated, today is the first, but I do have episodes queued up for each day up until the end of the month. Some are queued, some are not. I will be doing an episode, or I may be starting a trend called Podcast After Dark. I'll talk about that when we get to that point. But I wanted to at least let you all know what's been going on. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, take care. We've done it once again. We finished yet another episode. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you're not following on Twitter or on Facebook, please look up Pass Podcast. That's PASS Podcast, one word. I am accepting inquiries for any topics or concerns at passpodcastbt@gmail.com. And just continue to support. I appreciate all the support and everyone listening and tuning in. Until next time, y'all take it easy.